Hi, everyone. Welcome to the August Layer 7 office hours. I'm Pam Deason, Marketing Manager. And here today with me, I have Gary Vermeulen, Francois LaSalle, and Shravan Sandala. They are going to be sharing with you some real-world AI use cases. But before we get started, I wanted to just go over a few housekeeping things. First of all, right now, you're all muted. However, you're not going to be hard muted during the presentation. That means you could come off mute, unmute yourself, and ask questions should you choose to do that during the presentation. Or if you prefer, the panel that you have, there's a section for questions, and you can type your questions in during the presentation, and that's fine as well, right? We'll be monitoring that, and at the end, we'll take some time to look at the questions and make sure they all get answered. So either way, it's fine. And then one more quick thing, in the handout section of the panel, you'll see handouts. I've actually attached a slide there, and it's just a one-page slide. In it, we have QR codes that you could use to register for there's actually three upcoming customer appreciation events that we are going to be hosting in different cities. The first one is going to be in Toronto, Canada. It's going to be September 16th. For that one, we're going to include with it a comedy show. So it's at Second City is the location. For those of you familiar with Toronto, you probably know where that's at. It's a venue that's fun. It's dinner. We'll have dinner, drinks, and a fun comedy show after. It's called Dual Citizens. So that is going to be our fun event in that location. In October, at the middle of October, I think October 14th, we're going to have a Top Golf event. So that one will be in Atlanta. And then in the following week, we'll have another customer event. That one will be in New Jersey. It's Edison, New Jersey. So you'll see it's actually Alpharetta, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta, and then Edison, New Jersey. So those are the three locations. If you happen to be in those locations and would like to join us for these fun events and dinner, we're going to have food and a fun event in each location. Please take a minute to register. The QR code is there. Share it with your coworkers if you know of others who may want to also attend. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Francois, who's going to start us off today.
Thanks, Pam. My name is Francois. I manage architecture for Layer 7. Yeah, I actually will be, thanks, Pam, I will be at the Toronto event. So hopefully some of you, I get to see over there. So yeah, we're going to talk about AI patterns today. There's a lot of stuff going on in this area. Little disclaimer, some of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about is not even planned for release yet. So this is, not an engagement that we're releasing any of this stuff, especially this week. So I'm not sure if other organizations are experiencing it the same way, but Gen AI is definitely disrupting our organization. And it's happening really fast, and it's still we're still in the middle of the change, right? So there's a lot of implications for us, as I'm sure for many of you. Internally, obviously, our software development lifecycle is being impacted. How it's being impacted is being defined right now. We're being really careful about this, but it is really exciting. But as far as the product goes, there's also a lot of new use cases and patterns that are emerging that are changing our direction a little bit. And so I'm listing a few of those here. If you attended the February office hour, or if you saw the recording, we talked about the AI gateway pattern. This week and this month and in today's office hour, we're going to talk about MCP servers and Layer 7 prompt engineering for adoption and troubleshooting. And then there's lots of other ways, for example, down the pipe, some AI-powered functionality around API intelligence and eventually agentic down the road. So AI gateway pattern, the layer 7 gateway is in line of your traffic. The MCP pattern, we're on the side, and I'll describe this a little bit before I pass it. But those are the two demos that we're going to see today. So what is this specialized prompt engineering about? The idea is that, people that are stakeholders for layer 7, you will be, if you're not already today, using in your day-to-day life, large language model and a prompt to help you achieve your tasks. And so the idea is that you get a context for your prompt that you can use as part of your day-to-day work that's actually curated by a subject matter expert. So you've got, for each of the specific topics, you would have a subject matter expert that would curate this context asset, right? And that asset can be a repo or something that you download from us. And then you just hook up your prompt to it, and it helps you troubleshoot or adopt something because your prompt has this additional context that makes it more effective. So that's going to be the first demo that we have today. Gary is going to do that. The second demo we're going to talk about is the MCP pattern. And so if you have been using large language model and a prompt like the screenshot here is the Claude from, I forget what it's called. But yeah, this is the prompt from Claude, and you can see now you can attach these little tools like your Gmail, your calendar, and things like that. Those are MCP connectors. They allow your prompt to interact with an external tool. For example, it would be able to read your email by connecting this, or tell you what you got coming up in your calendar and things like that. So these MCPs can be running local to your prompt, or they can be running as a server. There's a whole protocol to allow for prompts to talk about these external tools. That's what MCP is. It's a JSON RPC protocol. So if you apply this to layer 7, you can put an MCP in front of APIs like Graphman, really rich API. You put an MCP in front of it, and that basically provides a bridge between working in natural language and actually either getting insights from your existing real-time things like your configuration in the case of Graphman, or even acting on it. And you can extend that concept to other APIs that Layer 7 provides, such as Portal API, depending on what you're using for your traffic analytics. You can have an MCP server in front of that, or OTK as API. So you can really connect lots of different things. This is something that's depending on how sophisticated your MCP server is, you can relatively easy create your own today, right? So we expect that some customers might already be starting to do that. And for us, yeah, we give you those APIs, so it makes sense, right? You can use these APIs any way that you want. If you want to create your own MCP, that's great. Our plans around this are still to be confirmed, to be determined. And I would say that not all MCP servers are the same. You can have like a really simple MCP that's just a wrapper for an API, or you can have an MCP that does a lot more, right? Which has more intelligence in it. So those are all things that we're figuring out and planning around. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I'm going to invite Gary to start the first demo.
Thanks, Francois. Let me just turn. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I'm going to start with the disclaimer again, just to, I guess, reiterate that we're not providing anything as of yet. So these are still discussions that we're having internally around this. But in the future, these will be sort of assets that we provide in sort of some way. Okay, so I'm going to focus today on how we augment your usage of our products. So there's, as Francois mentioned, there's a lot of different things that we're looking at for Gen AI, as ways that can, sort of augment the way that we do things. But how does it help our customers and partners? So we started with Helm because our Helm charts are sort of fairly popular. Going into, going into the future. So Helm and the Layer7 operator are becoming part of our sort of core future architecture for cloud native. So yeah, it's a good place to start. So Kubernetes is core to that. Kubernetes has a steep learning curve though, and that can significantly strain your timeline. So thinking, hey, this is going to take me 3 months, you sort of might be looking at 6 months, 9 months, and that can happen whether you're just starting out, so getting into Kubernetes, or even as a seasoned expert. So small errors can take time to diagnose and fault fix. So I guess the disclaimer to this, and you'll see this during my demo, is that LLMs and code assist tools don't solve everything. They can definitely be really useful, and they're going to improve over time. But yeah, they can be useful for information gathering, diagnosis, and also some development tasks. And I'll go into a couple of those. So with this, we're aiming to provide you with the right context to the tool that you use to do the following. Our assumption is that you might be using a different Gen AI code assist tool or a different Gen AI model in the background. It might be private, it might be public. So we want to provide something that was as generic as possible, or sort of build something as generic as possible. And that's so that you can use natural language. So, keeping problems simple, with us providing all of the expert context going into what the AI has. And that's because you don't start as a prompt engineering expert. But you would be able to start with that context and also adjust it to things that are specific to your environment, to your organization. We also want to simplify deployments. So instead of going through mounds and mounds of documentation, you can ask, hey, what is the recommended configuration for this? And you can have a Gen AI tool tell you that from reading all of the configuration. And then, hey, it works. What are the best practices? And what can we do better? So take a look at my current configuration. What am I doing well? What could I be doing better based on the sort of latest context from Broadcom? And is anything misconfigured? So do I have configuration that looks like it's configured right, but actually isn't working as intended? And so the Gen AI tool would be able to help you with that context. And then troubleshooting. So we look at this from an aspect of making sure that if you do have a problem with one of our products, that you're able to resolve that problem quickly, so you can continue using the product as intended. So there's a couple of stages here. So tell me why it isn't working. Tell me how to fix it. And then during that process, you might encounter, so very rarely, but you might encounter something that's actually down to a misconfiguration in, say, one of our Helm charts, or maybe there's a limitation in the gateway itself. Or maybe there's a limitation in the gateway itself. And so I want to take the information that you've gathered during our conversation so that I can raise a support ticket with Broadcom. And with that, we go into a potentially augmented support workflow. So we start with the customer or partner issue that comes through. So you've got a problem with your deployments. You attempt resolution. The blue represents something that can be augmented. So instead of needing to go through all of the documentation, instead of needing to go through each file individually, you can use our Gen AI context to attempt resolution with the Gen AI tool that you're using. And that can lead you to a problem resolved. It can also lead to additional context being added so that future developers, future DevOps engineers don't run into that same problem. The next step is contacting support. Part of the contacting support is information gathering. So that's either done on a troubleshooting call, or it's done during the attempt resolution. But generating and getting all of the right context is and can be challenging. Trying to capture the right things that are relevant to the support engineer, and so that step can be augmented. And with that, you can jump straight to a customer call where support has the right context as to the problem that you're experiencing and assist you in resolving that problem. The other thing that support could do is look at the context that you've provided, the information that you provided, and they can escalate that directly to engineering. So, hey, your configuration is right, everything else is right, there's something else wrong here. And that can then be escalated, which then follows an additional process to get to problem resolved. We also have, in the future, we'll have our own sort of internal contexts for different things within our products. And the engineer in rotation for that would be able to look at using that context instead of needing to contact the sort of relevant SME for that. So all of that leads to a greatly reduced time to resolution. And that's what we're looking at doing with this, is providing you with the right context so that you don't have to spend hours going through a support case where you don't need to, and also so that we get to a point of a problem resolution as fast as possible. All of this is cyclical, so if there is an issue, then so as we do currently, we create knowledge base articles based on particular problems that you might run into, and that would be and for some of those common issues, that would go back into context. So it's not something that that anyone runs into in the future. So as I mentioned, there is a large variety of different code assist tools and large language models available. It's pretty likely that you won't use the same ones that we do, or you might, but there's a large variety out there, so we can't assume that you will. So what I'll be showing you today is a generic context. So the idea is that any Gen AI tool, whether that's public or private, can read and understand that. This configuration, so as I mentioned, we're not actually providing anything right now. This is something that we're still discussing internally. I'll go into some of the challenges that we sort of have at the moment with that. But the idea is that we'd be able to provide some expert context for you, and then that would be living documentation. So it would be something that changes, as our understanding of the tools change, as the tools evolve, and also as we sort of have different things that come into scope for the documentation. And the idea is that the asset that you download at the end of the day will be something that is generic and is something that you can modify to meet any organizational or environmental needs that you have. So if you had a specific thing in your environment and you're using a private AI model, you might have some more context that you want to add that's specific to you and your organization. And so you can do that. So what are some of the challenges? So there's definitely a very big opportunity to simplify your interactions with our products, to reduce the amount of time that you spend looking at misconfiguration or just general errors that might occur with one of our products. But there are definitely some challenges with those interactions. So the biggest one in context of what I'll be showing you today is hallucinations. So we need to make sure that we can trust what you're being told by the Gen AI tool that you're using, because if you're not, then that leads to confusion, and that sort of might end up taking longer than it needs to. And sometimes that happens with explicit instructions not to. So that's something that I'll show you without the right context. So this is an example screenshot. I don't expect everyone to read all of it, but basically I asked Cursor to give me the a production grade values file, and it ignored a bunch of rules that I had and just hallucinated a bunch of additional configurations. So hopefully we'll see some of that hallucination without context. The other one is privacy. So what actually gets included in that context? What goes back to that potentially public large language model? So that's another big one. This is, I guess, another reason why we're still discussing some of these things internally. I think that we'll probably see private AI becoming more prevalent for that reason, because how is that context being used? And then inconsistency. So we'll hopefully see some of this today as well. So the same request with the same context can yield different results. This is also model dependent. But yeah, it can be fairly inconsistent and fairly creative with the way and the process that it goes through answering, which is why having the right context and telling it exactly how to respond is important as well. So what's the solution to some of these challenges? So better context and prompts, and these are going to get better over time. So more usage from us as a vendor. So the more that we use these Gen AI tools, the way that we create context is going to be better, and also telling it how to get better. So as experts, if we have a particular problem that we run into, we can tell the model, okay, this is incorrect. Add this back to the context that you're using, and it sort of iteratively gets better over time. Also, from a privacy perspective, as mentioned, private AI infrastructure is going to be a big thing, I think, in the next few years. Just because there's a lot of confidential information that you don't necessarily want going out to public models, not knowing how that information is going to be used in the future. And then tool evolution. So these Gen AI tools are going to get better over time. How much better is I guess debatable, but you know, even if they get 20% better over the next 6 months, that's still going to be a big improvement, and it's going to require change of context, and maybe it's going to understand context a bit more strictly. So with that, I'm going to head into a very quick demo. It should be about 8 minutes. Okay, so what I've got here is, let me just delete that file there. So what I've got here is a very simple folder. I've got a very simple gateway values file in this folder, and I've got some steps here that I'll use just so that I don't have to type things during the presentation. So I've got a gateway values file here. For anyone that's used the gateway Helm chart, you have to accept the license, so that's currently set to false. This is okay. It would deploy a gateway without a database. But yeah, so the first thing that we're going to do, without any context, and the chat's being cleared here, is I'm going to say I'm a customer. Take a look at my gateway values file. I want to deploy a basic gateway in my dev environment. Is this configuration okay? And can you recommend any changes? So without any additional context, it's going to probably look at the license, probably infer that the license should be accepted. But then it's probably going to hallucinate and create some additional variables that don't actually exist in the gateway Helm chart. So yeah, for example, there, this is something that doesn't exist. I don't know what that is, and it's basically hallucinated a bunch of different things. So if you had to deploy your development gateway with this, it wouldn't actually apply those settings. It doesn't actually, it doesn't have any basis in the real world. So to avoid that, what we can do is provide it with some additional context. So I'll clear this chat again, and we'll clone a repo which has some context for the Layer7 Helm charts. And so now what I've got is some additional context that goes into this. It's going to go ahead and read that context. Well, actually, yeah. So I will tell it to read the context, but this is a breakdown of that. And basically, what this is an instruction set. So hey, this is the README. Make sure you read Layer7 Gen AI config first. And in Layer7 Gen AI config, we have a set of rules that it must follow. And this is where hallucination gets a little bit funny, because even reading this, sometimes it goes, sometimes it's creative beyond the rules, which is quite funny, but sort of less trustworthy. But this is going to improve as we improve our understanding of the way that rules should actually be defined. So with that, we've got some nevers and always, that happen. And then we've got also some additional personas that you can use while you go through that. And basically, there are developers and there are users, and yeah. So we'll start out as a user or a customer, and we'll go to a very simple developer use case. So I'm going to tell the model, this is Claude Sonnet 4 for anyone that's interested. I'm going to tell it to read that folder and use that as its context. So it should now have context for the layer 7 Helm charts. There's a couple of important things. We don't have the actual Helm chart available here, and so we told it that, hey, if you don't have the Helm chart available, then go and download it. So that's one of the additional rules, and we'll see that in action shortly. So let's run that same command again. So I'm a customer. Take a look at my gateway values file. I want to deploy basic gateway in my dev environment. And is the configuration okay? And what can I do to improve it? And let's just go back to our original configuration. And we'll copy this again. I'll just drop that into the chat. So it knows that it needs to use the actual chart. And so it's going to go and grab the actual gateway chart. So it's going to grab the latest one because that's what we configured it to do. And it's going to untar that here. And it can then have access to the templates, the actual values file. And with that, it can work out what's actually there and what values actually exist. We've also told it not to make up configuration, which it does like to do, as we saw in the previous example. And once it's finished that, it should give us a fairly simple dev environment. It'll probably recommend that we enable the database. It's detected that we should accept the license, so that's good. But for the most part here, all of the configuration looks fairly good. Okay, so I could tell it to create the file, but I'll just leave it at that. So what it's actually gone through, it's picked up that we should accept the license. It has created a database for a dev environment. You might want that. And it's put the right placeholder, and it's put in the right placeholder so that you can configure credentials for that. So the next thing that we're going to do is copy in a different file. So this is a representation of something that works but is actually invalid. And I'll show you why. So there is a config section in the gateway Helm chart, the YAML configuration, and there is also listen ports. So in the gateway, listen ports is under config. In this example, this is a top level configuration. So this is incorrect. It's not going to cause you an error, but it isn't actually going to apply anything. Custom is also not enabled. So even if it was in the correct place, it wouldn't actually do anything. So we're going to ask the tool to fix this. This is a real life use case from both internally and with some customers, related to, hey, my configuration is fine, my Helm chart's deploying, but it's not working as I expected to. So let's go through that. So I'm a customer, my gateway is not running as expected. Tell me what's wrong. It's in the layer 7 namespace. The release is called my gateway, and my values file is gateway values invalid.yaml. And I have some listen ports defined that are not being configured correctly. So by providing additional sort of context up front, it means that it doesn't have to figure out which deployment you're actually running. So you can see I've got my gateway there, and if I do get pods, I've got a standard gateway deployment there. But let's go ahead and run that. So it has a, so we also have a structure that it follows for troubleshooting. So that's also defined in the Gen AI context. And it's going to go through that process. It's also going to check the templates. It's going to read the values files that we have to double check that configuration. It's going to look and see like, hey, is the gateway running? And if it is, then it'll try and identify what the actual problem is. So it's detected that it has been disabled in the first instance, and then secondly, it's put into the correct place. So just by providing the additional context, that answer becomes a lot more succinct, and you'd actually be able to use that directly, or at least you'd be able to take this advice and update the configuration for that. Now, if you were solving this without Gen AI, that's obviously 100% possible. But if you were looking at several different configurations, then trying to find out exactly what isn't padded correctly, especially if you're looking at this configuration for the first time, can be very challenging. Okay, so the next one is, I'm not satisfied with that. So you've suggested a solution, I don't like it, and I want to raise a support case anyway because I think that it's related to a bug. So it creates a separate folder in this directory and capture all of that information that you gather during the conversation. And this is the second to last one that we'll go through. I won't actually let this one finish because it will take a while. So we'll just sort of cut things short a little bit. There's also a structure or a process for information gathering. So as a vendor, we know the type of information that we're interested in from a support standpoint. And so we will attempt to capture that information with you while we're going through troubleshooting on a call. But if you can provide that context up front, then that makes it much easier to troubleshoot and diagnose exactly what might be going wrong. And so this is starting to get information about the environment. This is probably a bit too much. We don't need all of that cluster information. But things like the Helm version that you're using, the releases that you're running, we should also have kubectl version. So this is all really useful information when we're looking at the environments. So something like this, we sort of might identify that you have client server versions that are out of date, and that might be a recommendation that we go back to you with. So yeah, and what I'll do is I'll run that, but let me just stop this so that we can move on to the sort of next use case. So I think, yeah, the sort of process here is relatively clear. We're generating a bunch of information, and you can then use that to selectively upload that to a support case. So the last use case, and in this one we take on the role of a developer. This could also be from a customer perspective. You might need to mount something to the gateway for a new configuration file. And that could be, setting up a new empty directory that you intend to write to with a sidecar and a container. But you initially might think that, hey, I need to change something in the templates. And so, yeah, you ask Gen AI to sort of help you with that. And what it should do, hopefully, is say that there are already existing ways to do that. And so you don't actually have to change anything from a development perspective. You just have to configure them. And so if you were planning on changing templates and customizing those and creating a custom version of one of our charts, you wouldn't have to. You just have to add the relevant configuration. And you can also further this conversation and ask it, well, hey, how do I actually go about configuring that volume or that volume source, whether that's a config map or a secret. and it's also providing some additional information without actually recommending that I change anything in any of the templates. So yeah, those are the different use cases that I had to show with that today. As mentioned, this is something that we're still discussing internally in terms of distribution. But if you have any use cases related to this, then please reach out. Yeah, we're sort of happy to discuss those with you. And with that, I will stop sharing and hand over.
This is great. There's a couple of questions coming in the background here. I think that in order to make sure that Sravan has enough time for his use case, we can keep answering those in the background, Gary. Yeah, let's pass this to Sravan.
Good morning, good evening. Thank you, Francois. Thanks, Kerry. That was a great demo. So I'm Shravan. I'm here to talk about MCP server, which we have developed for our gateway. And we call it as Layer7 Graph MCP server. And as Francois mentioned initially, what MCP servers are about and what kind of use cases we're trying to explore internally. In this particular use case, the MCP server which we have developed is essentially providing a bridge between the LLMs which we are using. In our case, it's Cursor, and to the gateway. The gateway happens to be our external tool. So this MCP server is actually allowing the customers or anybody who is using this MCP server to start interacting with the gateways. For the sake of this demo, I have actually configured some of my gateways here in this JSON file. Anybody who wants to try this out can try this out with your own gateways. And let's see some use cases which Francois was mentioning about initially, like certificate expiry, migrations example. With that basic details, let me get started with some use cases. Before even we get into the use cases, I just want to speak about one major problem that we wanted to address, because in the API gateway or API management world, customers generally develop a whole lot of policies and services to protect their APIs. And once they are satisfied with its work, generally they would start moving the same policies up the staging environments from dev, QA to production. So that shows the importance of migration tools. In fact, migration is so important that we have provided GMU. We had RESTman also, now we have Graphman. Again, Graphman is developed on top of GraphQL. The MCP server which we have developed right now works on top of Graphman API. So essentially anything Graphman does, this MCP server can do it as well. The difference being you will be able to get things done just by using simple natural language, to be precise English. You can get your tasks done. What kind of tasks they are? Let's see. Let's try out some couple of use cases. And before I try these use cases, let me just see what kind of entities do I have. Please compare my source gateway and target gateway. That's it. No extra context. I just gave a simple natural English prompt, and I did not even provide what is my source gateway, what is my target gateway, because it understands from this JSON file which I'm showing here. So you can see step by step, it will actually list out what kind of tasks it is going to do. And because we already have the MCP server in place, it is going to call those tools which the MCP server has exposed in order to get the task done. The task in our hand here is comparison of two gateways, because generally this could be a use case, a valid use case for customers when they want to migrate few entities. Before they migrate, they want to be sure that some of the entities have been migrated, some of the entities have not been migrated, so that they get a clear understanding of what is the difference between these two environments. So you could see here step by step how our LLM, which is Cloud Force Sonnet in this use case, which is embedded inside Cursor, is how it is trying to lift out and get the tasks done. So just to show you, Generally to do the migration, we either follow some complex UI use cases like using this policy manager here or some Graph. But without even accessing any of these tools, I just want to show how by using natural language we will be able to get the tasks done. So there you go. It has done its thing, and it is actually showing us all the comparisons of services, policies, and even folders also for that case. And you could see it even giving us some recommendations about migrations. It has done the task, and it is showing us what are all the different entities. It has even clearly listed out in a tabular form, showing what are the number of total services on the source gateway, number of services on the target gateway, and what are the differences. Are they same or different? Whether they are built-in services or custom services. And it is also clearly mentioning out the folder structure comparison, service analysis. It does everything, because once it gets the data, we all know what LLMs are capable of. They have a lot of intelligence, and they know how to make the things easy for us. That is what it is trying to do here. And with this data in my hand, I realized that there's one use case which I would like to show here. I have a source gateway, and I have a test API endpoint exposed on my source gateway. You could clearly see when I try to hit that, it is actually showing me the output that it has reached the source gateway. And suppose if I try to hit the API on the target gateway, what will I get? Essentially, it will say service not found, obviously, because this service is not present. The service called test API is not present on the target gateway. So as of now, this is my aim. I'll just ask LLMs to migrate test API to target gateway. Okay, let's see what it does. Generally, to get this done, we have to use our Graph.min APIs with its GraphQL syntax and query languages. But we don't need to do any of those things. We don't need to understand the syntax of it to get the job done by using LLMs. There you go. It has started its thing, and it is starting to migrate the standalone service. Standalone service, you could see this is one of the tools which we have written in our MCP server. So this is our MCP server, which I can show you here in Cursor. It has almost 54 tools enabled, and all those things which you are seeing here, configure service, get service, list services, they're all different tools. So yeah, there you go. It says migration is successful. Is it really successful, or is it really just hallucinating? Let's test it out. There you go. Now I'm able to hit the test API endpoint on the target gateway, and it is clearly showing me this is the endpoint which it has reached. So that means the migration has worked. Let's see a little more complex use cases. Be able to handle migrations in batch, like more services than just one. Can you migrate? We can just name out the services, or I can just say, for the sake of demo, 4 more services. So it's to target gateway. So essentially what it does now is it will start the tool calling. It will try to get the APIs which are present in the source gateway and those that are not present in the target gateway. And then it will start migration. So this is one full operation where we are trying to migrate the services from one gateway to another gateway. But again, not necessary that the user is completely confident about the AI or the GenAI LLM which we are seeing here, in which case, he could just prompt saying that I would like to migrate these services, but before migrating, just list me out the data. And if I'm content with the data, I would like to migrate. You could in fact go ahead and do such kind of prompts as well. If time permits, I think we should be able to do that demo as well. Oh yeah, there you go. By the time I just spoke those sentences, it has migrated all those services. So it says Swagger, XSLT, XML schema, multi-backend. And if I see, this is the target gateway. And if you see, none of these 4 were present. Swagger, XSLT, XML schema. I don't see Swagger, I don't see XSLT, nothing like that, right? What I'll do, I'll just refresh to ensure if those things have come, if those services have come. There you go, Swagger, XML schema, XSLT, it has migrated. Now let's try not just the services. Can you even migrate the folders as well? Okay. Can you help me migrate the folders from target gateway to target gateway? You could do either ways. I'm just typing it this way. Also, before migrating, show me the data that is about migrate only with my consent. So let's see if it really honors our request, or it will just go ahead and do the migration on its own. What is it saying? I'll help you migrate the folders from source. Let me first show you exactly what data will be migrated. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I want. And again, it nicely lists down step-by-step procedure because it's intelligent. It knows what to do. And the tools which we have written will now help it to get the tasks done. There you go. It is doing all the exports there. Services have been exported. Getting the gateway info. Task 1 done. Going with the task 2. Folder migration. There you go. Folder migration preview. Here it is giving us this preview. Current state. Source gateway has these 2 folders. Target gateway has these 3 folders. Detailed migration preview. SF1 folder. What is its name? How much it has? What are the policies inside them? The same thing about SF2 migration impact analysis. There you go. It is trying to even inform us what it could cost us or what could be the impact of this migration. And after migration, what target gateway will have. So just to be sure, let's see what are the target gateway. This is my target gateway. It has only these 2 folders. Just want to refresh and ensure that none of the other folders have come. Yeah, there you go. TF1 and TF2. Nothing else has come now. Migration safety check. No naming conflicts with existing conflicts. So there you go. It has even did the safety check as well, ensuring that the user is now almost sure that yes, go ahead and migrate. So let's save. Okay. Now you could see that I did not even ask whether to migrate from source to target because it already has the context. And there you go. Perfect. It is about to migrate SF1 and SF2, both folders, from the source gateway to target gateway. Folder. So essentially, we could actually see the power of this. Graph-in APIs will help us to migrate, but to inspect again, that's a different ball game. We need to have separate intelligence, but just by leveraging LLMs with MCP, we could see by exposing the data, gateway data to the LLMs, how much of intelligence and how much of extra metadata we get, which will actually help us a lot in troubleshooting and making things easy for us. So there you go. It has actually migrated now, and it has even validated also that migration is now done of folders. We refresh. Let's check over here. Yeah, there you go. Now we have SF1 and SF2 as well. That's what we have in the source gateway as well. So ensuring that whatever the migration is done in full. And we could see some more use cases. Let's see some use cases with respect to certificate expiry. This is again one of the most common problems which most of the customers face. Okay. Can you help me analyze certificates on source gateways? See what it does. I did not even ask my exact use case of checking if there are some certificates that are due for expiry. That is my actual use case. But before even I do that, let me see what it does, how it will apply its intelligence, and how by calling the MCP server tools, what kind of intelligence and what kind of information it will come up with. you go. So if you see that it doesn't see one way of working, it will not stop there. It will try to ensure that the task is done. So it will now go ahead and call the Grafman queries. And if you see most of the tools, Grafman query, Grafman mutate, these are some of the tools. And there are more specific tools as well. We can get 80-90% of the jobs done just by these two tools. But since LLMs inherently don't have the tool calling capability, these are essentially written on the application like a Claude, which actually is wrapping up the LLMs inside them. And only when that particular LLMs have the tool calling capability, only then they'll be able to use this MCP capability. So yeah, it looks like it did something. Let's see what it does. Oh yeah, there you go. It did something, and now it is saying certificate analysis report, source gateway, certificate inventory, risk level as well. It is showing the kind of certificates I have, google.com, NDTV, the certificate of target gateway, and a couple of other gateways. It says these certificates are about to be expiring soon, and how many days are left as well. Expires in 1 day, 12 days, 25 days, 10 years, 5 years, 4 months. Critical, and you could see the risk level also, critical, high level. And what are the critical findings which it found? August 29, this is one of the certificate which it is saying expires on August 29, just 1 day from now. So this is the subject name, action required, immediate renewal or removal. There you go. I did not give it any such context. Maybe because when I was trying to initially check the use cases, it has some context of it. But I'm sure most of the use cases, even when you try it on fresh level, I've seen it working with this kind of intelligence. So there you go, doing the certificate analysis as well, giving us a nice indication of what to expect and what are the action items which we are supposed to take care about our gateway. It gives entire information like this. What is the critical health summary also, what are the health of individual certificates that we have, and recommended actions as well. So this is how it can really help our customers instead of understanding the complex bundles or base64 encoded data which is out there. There is a lot of data out there, but how do you make sense out of them? What kind of information it actually provides us with? How will it help the API consumers or API developers? And these are just for us to imagine. And once we have the MCP server ready in place, the number of things which we can do is just left to our imagination. And like Francois mentioned, if you have an API out there, you could go ahead and develop your own MCP server as well, which does the thing for you. Because APIs cannot be called directly by entities. I mean, LLMs. If you have a MCP server, you could actually increase its presence and how much you can leverage out of it using the LLMs as well. We're in 2025 August. Almost every small, big, and medium enterprises are trying their hands out on GenAI tools. And when they see some advantage like this, pretty much they would love the investment. This is what I wanted to show. And if there are any queries, we are open for queries.
Thanks, Siobhan. That's great. There were queries along the way, which we answered, but I think this is, we have just a few last minutes in the session. This is usually when people are allowed to unmute themselves. Maybe you can turn on the thing. And yeah, feel free to ask a question, unmute yourself and ask a question. There were questions earlier, for example, about whether the MCP would carry over dependencies of services when you migrate it. And yeah, of course, the MCP is using Grafman and it can include dependencies or not, depending on what you choose to do. If you create your own MCP, you would basically instruct your MCP to do this or not. You can make this optional. Again, this MCP is just for demo purposes. We're not ready to share this this one in particular. It's just to show you the potential what you can do with MCP. There are other questions around, which prompt, which LLM we're using. I think in most of the demos you saw today, we were using Cursor with the Claude 4 Sonnet LLM. Yeah, but anybody else, feel free to unmute yourself. somebody's asking, can it help to generate document for a policy by understanding the flow? I think that, yeah, that's not a use case that we had, but certainly this is something that could be made possible for sure. It's a good use case, good idea.
Hello, is this something that when you do share it, that we could build on? So if we have, let's say, a customer has their own, blueprint as such, with the way they build their policy logic and certain rules, so that all of their policy developers do the same thing. Is that something that we could build on and actually add extras to it?
That would make sense, yeah, Vince. I think this is something that we have to discuss internally, but it is one of the possibilities that we're considering, where we would share, for example, this MCP could be built in Python or JavaScript, and and that could be made available as an example on the community repo, and then customers could fork it or create their own extension on top of it. You have to obviously be extremely careful what you do with your MCP. Especially if you equip it with some administrative credentials.
There's no security with MCP at the moment.
Well, there's an MCP
really
authorization flow as part of the protocol that is still a little bit of a moving target. But in this case, the MCP is used locally, right? So the credentials your gateway are managed locally. So that's a good way to get around some complicated authorization flows that would need to happen if you host this as an MCP server where different people can connect to the same MCP. Yeah.
I think Shravan in the background is generating documentation based on
there you go.
test API.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's already
I just
done.
gave this. It's done.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we're at the top of the hour. Yeah, feel free to reach out. If you have a use case that is analogous to what we showed you that you think we should know about, we would love to hear from you guys.
Yeah, and just as a reminder to everyone, this is recorded and will be available actually on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and this afternoon. So feel free to listen again. And as Francois pointed out, if you have any questions, do reach out. Thank you. And we hope everyone has a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye all.
All right, bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.